Okay. The format of this meeting is one 10-minute speaker, a coffee break, and a main speaker. Tonight, Matt is our first 10-minute speaker.
My name's Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date of 11/11/2020. I have a sponsor, and I have a home group. And those three things are important, right? Like, I sponsor people exactly the way I was brought through these steps, because this way of life has given me another way to live that I didn't know existed. You know, and it's really important for me to say those things when I come up here, because the people, when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, the belly laugh was gone. You know, and these people that were outside of these meetings, and they had that belly laugh, they were doing the things that I'm doing today, right? You know, I didn't get here fast. You know, I've been coming in and out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous since I was 17 years old. I'm half white, half Mexican. That has nothing to do with anything, right? But both sides of my family like to drink. On one side of my family, there's cowboys, and on the other side, there's straight gangbangers, you know? I didn't even know where I belonged from the jump, you know? So I was using this address while I was going to school. I was going to school in Manhattan while I lived in Lawndale, right? And I just didn't have what these guys had, and I felt a little less than. You know, I felt apart from, you know, my younger brother and my older brother, they could have a good time, and I didn't know how they were doing it. You know, and one time I went to one of my cousins, my family parties on my Mexican side, and my cousin said, "Here, take a little bit of this," right? And he poured me a little tiny glass. And I was like, I want more, because I thought it was all this and that, you know? And I pounded that whole drink, and I woke up in bed with my girl cousin's best friend, and I knew that alcohol was doing something for me I could never do for myself. You know? And then I ran from there on out, you know? And I would jump from one sufficient substitute for another. You know, thank God for the court systems, because they led me to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, if it wasn't for the court systems and all the times I've gotten in trouble because of my drinking and using, I would have never made it to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I went to 7 different treatment centers. That doesn't mean I'm an alcoholic either. You know, that one of my friends says that just means you paid a lot for a big book. You know, and I would go inside of these rooms, and by the 7th rehab, I was in there, and I remember what people were saying in Alcoholics Anonymous, and like, I had a problem with God when I got here, right? And then I started praying, and I remember COVID broke out. It was like in 2019, and we went to the last meeting before we went on lockdown, and there was a part of the meeting where someone says like, is there anybody here that needs a sponsor? You know, and I raised my hand, and I got a working knowledge of the 12 steps, and through that I got a God of my understanding, but I had a reservation to smoke weed because it grows from the ground, right? You know, it sounded, my disease will sneak up on me and talk to me in my own voice and tell me something that sounds good, you know? And I went to one of my friend's house for the first time. I had 8 months at the time, and I was going to meetings late, leaving early. I didn't really want anything to do with Alcoholics Anonymous, but I wanted the step process. You know, I wanted another way to live. I just didn't want to do all the things that everyone else was doing, you know, that I'm doing today, you know? And my friend had some outside issues, and I was without defense against that first one more time. You know, someone started turning purple, but the second I take one, I can't stop. I give them CPR, they get brought back to life, and then my disease pops in my head and it tells me, hey, like, you could just do a little and you won't die. You know, and I believe that, you know. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten out of jails, right? And like, I meant that I wanted to stop. If I would have took a lie detector test, I would have passed because I wanted to stop. But somewhere in between my house and the liquor store where I was going to get cigarettes, my disease would creep in and tell me, like, this is how this is going to work. And I would believe it, and I would be back on this vicious cycle I didn't even know I had at the time. So this last time I went out, I was doing all the substances and alcohol that I ever went to treatments for, and I just couldn't get that ease and comfort that it once solved. You know, I couldn't get that thing, you know, it wasn't getting fixed. I couldn't stop thinking about what the people were saying in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in my house, and thank God for my parents, you know, like my parents were still like loving me and still being there for me. You know, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be sober today. You know, their love was always there. I remember my mom would leave little things on the counters just to like show me that God was still working in my life, you know? Poor lady, dude. And my mom said, Matthew, how are you doing? You know, I was in my parents' house detoxing one more time, you know, and I said, I keep doing this, but I can't stop. And I think one more is going to help, but it doesn't help. You know, and she said, give it to me. And just like any good alcoholic, I kept a little for myself to get my last two raw. You know, I got a phone call from my younger brother, and he said Grandpa passed away. And I took my last one, and I went to go pick up my grandpa's dead body. And the next day I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And this time I was spiritually broken. You know, this time I didn't know how to look people in their eyes. I was afraid to talk to people. I was afraid to share. And I had a plan of going to one meeting and getting one commitment. And my way has always worked, right? You know, and for the first time, I started going to these meetings. And 60 days in, I got a sponsor. And I started meeting up with this guy once a week and going through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and what happened was I was able to look at my life and how powerless it really was and how unmanageable my life really was. I was unable to keep a job because I never had a job. You know, it's crazy, dude. I found a God of my own understanding. The last time I was at church, I was stealing purses during Bible study. So, like, I thought that God would turn me away, you know, and luckily I found a God of my own understanding. You know, and made a decision to turn. I did the step 3 with my sponsor at a Starbucks, and I was like, everyone's looking at us holding hands right here. I felt so uncomfortable. You know, like, what are they going to think if we're reading a book together at this Starbucks right here? And then I did my 4th step, and I believe that the teacher is there when the student is ready, right? Because this guy, I had like 172 resentments. I was mad at everyone. You know, and he said, is there any secrets you have? And he just happened to say the one thing that I was going to leave out of my 4th step. That stuff we promise. I don't know if you guys have those things that you promise you're never going to tell another soul. You know, and it was just happened to be that one thing. And I remember going home, and there's a part where we sit with a quiet mind for an hour, right? And I remember calling my friend after. I was like, bro, did you really sit for an hour? Because I thought it sounded crazy. I was like, I could barely sit for 10 minutes. And I sat with a quiet mind for the first time in my life. And I knew that God was working in my life. You know, I knew that God, like I absolutely knew. And then I kind of skimmed over the 6 and 7 that time. I made some amends. I stole someone's car in high school, my teacher's car in high school, right? And I've made a bad, like, it's good to do the steps in order, right? Because I made an improper amends, and then I got to meet up with this guy at the Hermoso Alano Club and make amends to him, you know, and I told him that it was me because I left my sweater with my last name in your car, so it was me. I don't remember, but I'm willing to do whatever to make things right. And this guy said, just pass the message of Alcoholics Anonymous along to the next person who's still sick, and that's what I do to the best of my ability. You know, I stay in 10, 11, and 12. You know, I do a nightly inventory every single night, and the 10th step has saved my life at the beginning of recovery, and it saves my life if I turn to it more often. You know, one time when I had like 6 months, my friend hung himself, right? And then I finally called someone. I prayed and I called someone and I turned my attention to someone that could help. But this time I actually turned my attention to someone that could help. You know, I said, how are you doing? And most of us say, like, good. You know, good, of course. And then I was like, no, how are you really doing? And this guy gave me a chance to pick him up, and I finally wasn't thinking about me. What this program has given me is a peace of mind that I can never pay this back to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, like anytime I'm asked, I show up and I do it. You know, and now I suit up. It's kind of crazy, right? Today I get to show up for my parents in ways that, like, I was unable to before. You know, I bring my mom's, thank you. I bring my mom medicine when she's sick today. You know, all the things she was leaving on my counter, I give her gifts that are it's like full circle, right? I believe that this life is like full circle, you know? What we're given is a new way to live, and what we do with that is on us. You know, like practicing these principles at work and at the registers, like, because I might be the only example of Alcoholics Anonymous that someone ever runs into, and I got to take that into account. You know, I don't know. If you're new, please try this thing out. You know, it works. If you don't think it works, still try it out, you know, and keep doing the opposite actions, you know. That's all I got to share.
And now, please join me in welcoming our main speaker, Ryan. Where are you from, Ryan?
Outer space.
From outer space. All yours, Ryan.
My name is Ryan. I'm an alcoholic. It's grateful to be here, grateful to be sober. Thank you, Matt, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Got a lot from it. I appreciate you asking me, even though I was your fourth person to ask to come and speak. You know, at the same time, I was trying to pawn it off on him, like, why don't you be for the 45 and I'll be your 10, you know? But I'm just, it's an honor and a privilege to come and speak anywhere, you know what I mean? Truly, truly grateful for this program and for what this program has done for me. Welcome to the newcomers. You guys are the most important person here. I hope you hear something that keeps you coming back. And if you don't hear it tonight, I hope you go and hear it at another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever fellowship of your choice, right? Because most of us come in here and we think like we might not be an alcoholic. We might not have a problem. And then as we start to go through the certain things in our life, we realize that, hey, that might be me, right? And just a little bit about myself, because this is the hour I get to talk about myself. You know, I'm like most. I start at a young age, at 12 years old, you know, going to school, hanging out with the older crowd. And, you know, I got friends that have older brothers. And, you know, so it's smoking Marlboro Reds and that joint on our way to school, you know what I mean? And, yeah, I didn't realize that I would be, you know, one day saying like, hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm an alcoholic, and I have a problem, you know? And I found out that I am powerless over people, places, and things. And, I mean, I'm sure we all can relate to that, you know? I was the oldest out of four, you know, from a single parent family. My mom raised me, and I'm so thankful that she raised me the way she raised me. You know, I didn't come from like a broken family other than like a single family, you know. But she did what she had to do to put clothes on our back and, you know, try to teach us right from wrong. And I could remember like growing up and having friends that were, you know, going to church. You know, I had Indian friends, I had Asian friends, I had Hispanic friends, I had black friends, and it was because of the areas that I would grow up in, because I moved a lot, right? And I got to learn how to like play basketball and baseball and dodgeball. And I never thought that you know, one day hanging around the wrong crowd or you know, doing something that I thought was fun was going to end up in, you know, a place like this, you know what I mean? And, you know, little did I know is that I don't know anything. I'm constantly learning off of people that have already gone through, you know, other things that I haven't experienced at that time, right? Like I remember one of my friends going to YA at 15, you know, and I'd think like, what is that? And it's like a graduation from juvenile hall, right? It's like you don't go to juvie, you go to YA, and you know, he was like trying to be this gangster from like Compton, and I would think like, oh, they got Mexican, you know, gangsters in Compton, you know what I mean? I was like, whoa, you know, and at the time it was cool because I was 15 years old. I was selling newspaper subscriptions door to door in Orange County because I had to have that job in order to support what I did not know at the time, my habit. Because my mom raised me proper, right? She told me if I wanted to wear those clown pants, I'd have to buy them myself. So I ended up getting that job. I got that job where I was knocking door to door, and it was like a group of people, and our boss at the time was a Christian man, and he would always offer to take us to church on Sundays, and he would take us to different cities, and there was times that he would take us into a city. I remember like going into Garden Grove, and other people that I worked with, they were like from neighborhoods, and they were from different neighborhoods, and sometimes they would even fight each other. But then there would be times where we would go and do our little like hour of door knocking, and then when we'd go pick up some people, they would be hiding in bushes, running to the van with no shoes. Sometimes their shirts would be off because they've gotten into a fight, and man, I loved it. I was like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the excitement a 15-year-old should do. At the time, I think I was making about $100 to $125 a week. And for a 15-year-old, that is huge. I'd smoke crack on Wednesdays. I would do acid and mushrooms every other day throughout the week. And, at the time, I thought I was just having fun, a lot of fun. And, man, I'm that older brother that is very protective of his sister. I have a sister that got into the goth scene, and she would get tired of like me getting all the phone calls at the house, me always going to do something. So she had to like try and step it up, and the phone started ringing. The cops started showing up at the door. She was going in and out of juvie. And I would tell her, man, what are you doing? Like, you're doing this all wrong. Like, if you want to be able to enjoy a drink or whatever drugs you're doing, like, you need to be more slick, And, man, because it was me, and my mom would take me and my other two little siblings with her to go visit my sister in juvie. And I'd always think like, man, that sucks for her, you know what I mean? And here I am thinking like, I could write my name on the walls and go and break dance with some friends and like enjoy life and the weekend, house parties and stuff. And my little sister's just messing up, right? And and I remember there would be some scary times at, 15, 16, 17 years old, and I'd be looking for my sister because she hasn't been seen in days, and I would go up to like hotel rooms with my friend, and when you got that liquid courage and you're not afraid to do anything, whatever the the case may be. And I remember knocking on a room looking for my sister, and when the door opened, it was packed full of people. And these people could have like beat the living hell out of me if they really wanted to. Like, who the hell is this guy? And all I was there for was my sister. And when they said, get Kristen out of the room, I brought her home. And what happened when I brought her home? She ran right back out of the door because my mom was going to put hands on her, And man, that's the life that we lived. We did what we wanted to do. We did it so good to where my mom just got so stressed out that she decided to leave us, because as a parent, I can only imagine, I don't have children, but I can only imagine as a parent, and your kids are just doing whatever they feel like it at any given time. There's no control. We're running the show, and we're only like 15, 16, 17 years old under mommy's roof, right? Making our own rules, stressing our mom out. So my mom had no other choice but to move. She went from California to Chicago to get away from us, and she did that right when a little bit after my sister had turned 18. She said, I don't care what happens to you kids. I'm done. I'm done worrying about you. I'm done thinking about what's going to happen. I'm waiting for the cops to come to my door telling me your sister's dead or you. And she moved. She got out of here. And I said, finally, I could do what I want when I want. I moved in with that girl that I thought I was in love with. And things got real, I thought I was in love. And, I ended up getting that girl pregnant. And she miscarried at 6 months. And I experienced, I was about 20 years old at the time. And, we had to sign a death certificate. We had to name him, and it wasn't as hard at the time, right? because I'm like getting drunk and loaded at that time. So it's just I'm numbing myself, and I don't care what the consequences are. I can't feel anything at that time, you know. And I put that girl through hell. And then finally, eventually, you know, she had cheated on me, and I wondered why. Why? How could she do that to a person like me? She had every right to, you know what I mean? I wasn't giving her attention. I wasn't doing things as a healthy relationship was about. I was doing what Ryan thought: get drunk and loaded every day, and show her, hey, as long as I'm bringing home the money and I'm putting a roof over your head and food in your belly, I could do what I want, when I want, and so on and so forth. And yeah, she got in my way of my drinking, so she had to go, especially when I found out, right? And you know, I'd like to say like I was able to be one of those functioning alcoholics that could like have that roof over my head, go home and go to work, come home, drink a beer, and then go do it the next day. But no, like that weekend would come. After I had kicked her out, it was a flop house. You know, I'd have all my friends come over and do whatever they felt like it. I'd have a really good friend of mine that would come over, and at that time I wasn't into like hardcore drugs, and my friend would come over every day that he knew I was home and say, hey, I'm going to go overdose in your bathroom. And I'm like, you're crazy. Like, why would you? Like, I don't even want to know what you're doing in there, right? And then one day he offered, he said, hey, I got a little bit of extra. You want some? And I said, oh, you could snort it in a spoon? Okay, let's try it out. And I got that effect. You know, I come into Alcoholics Anonymous thinking like I don't have an alcohol problem. I have a drug problem, you know, because I didn't go to jail because of alcohol. Well, I have. I've been to the drunk tank plenty of times, but I didn't get in serious trouble until like it was possession of heroin, possession of controlled substance. You know what I mean? And from that start, I remember just enjoying it and wondering, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. And it was really like I was just thinking like, I'm just killing myself. I just don't know it yet. I could remember at that time I had that apartment, the flop house. All of my homies were coming in and drinking booze, and we were watching record episodes of The Simpsons, and that was life, you know. It came to a point where my apartment is getting in the way of my buying my booze for the day, my drug of choice for the day, and that apartment had to go. It went to my friend that had a stripper wife. He took it over. He took over that apartment for about 3 months, and then I said, the heck with this. I cannot have you. You're going to punch holes in my wall. The apartment's still under my name. I got to get you out of here. And I ended up renting a room. I rented a room with a friend of mine. And little did I know, both his parents were in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did not know, because my friend was a complete, what I thought, alcoholic. He would go to sleep to listening to punk rock music loud, and he would wake up. I remember he would always wake up and tell me, I pissed on her again. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I pissed on her. I pissed on myself. And that's what I thought an alcoholic was. An alcoholic is somebody that pisses himself, maybe pushes a shopping cart, on the street, just smells funny and asks for change. And there's no way I could be that person or have that problem. That is just not me. Until finally, I had to move out of that place because they were getting a divorce. Because, as I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned that no matter what we go through, we could get through anything that we have to go through. And they went through a divorce. It was a pretty healthy one that I've seen. I mean, I had to move out, but they went their separate ways. And then I started couch surfing. Because that's the cheaper, easiest way. I'd rent a couch for I don't know, at the time it was like $10-20 a week or something. And I'd start my day in good old Buena Park, and I would wake up and I would start panhandling at them gas stations, anywhere on Beach Boulevard, right? I'd panhandle. And yeah, I did what it took just to get what I needed for the day. I'd always have that thinking of like, well, as long as I'm not on parole or probation, they can't check my shoes, right? Until one day, we got stopped and they checked my shoes. They found a couple syringes, they found a crack pipe, and then they found, some residue, and they finally took me in. At 26, I was finally going to jail, or about 25, I'm sorry. 25, I was finally going to jail. I had finally learned my lesson, since I've been growing up from the age of 12, like experimenting, right, with party favors and just trying to have fun all that time, I'm also a high school dropout, you know what I mean? I don't take anything super seriously. Education, I would just be like, I don't need education. All I got to do is like street smarts and I'll be able to earn $1 and do this and do that. But no, I have to finally learn the hard way. And I remember that first time going to jail. And I'd like to say it was my last time, but that's not what happened. I got to learn how the system works. And, because in the past, I had those friends that had those older brothers that would tell me what to do when you do go to jail, right? So I'd already had a pep talk on what happens when what you do when you go. And, finally, it's like, I'm super thankful if you're in a program or you're in a residential program or you're on some court card, I hope you take advantage of it. I hope you get through it. And I hope you continue to do what you're doing. Because that's what happened with me. Like, there's no, I wish somebody would have, like, sprinkled some, like, fairy dust on me and said, you are going to be cured of your drug and alcohol problem. You could go about your business and have a good life. But no, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn that when I finally became the owner of a 2-man tent next to the 605 freeway, I started to realize my life has hit rock bottom. But see, I didn't see it like that. I thought I was on like camping, I remember I would go in jail and then get out. And of course I'd go and cry to that sister that I would be mean to. And my sister would come and save me. My sister would come and pick me up from either Twin Towers in LA, or she would come and pick me up from Santa Ana jail, or the Seal Beach, jail, and it would always be my little sister coming to my rescue, and she would let me stay the night, and then tell me, like, I hope you have somewhere to go, and I'd be like, just take me back to my hidden treasures. Like, I have a backpack stashed in this bush over here that I need to get back to. I got a couple bags of smokes in there. I think I got a bottle of something, and I got to get back to my hidden treasures. And, that's how I started to live my life. And I thought I was pretty slick. I had my tent was over on 605 freeway in Catella off-ramp in the city of Los Alamitos. And I would break it down. I would cover it with leaves, so it looked like nobody was there. I thought I was real slick back in 2008. And one time I remember leaving that tent in the morning, and I didn't break it down. And I had gotten stopped by the Los Alamitos police, and they decided to take me in. And then I got released like a couple weeks after, and I went back to my camping grounds. And my tent was thrown over into some like little ditch area, and I was like, no, I should not come back here anymore, right? So I would sleep in abandoned houses in the city that's next door to Los Alamitos in Hawaiian Gardens. And I would sleep in abandoned houses. I've slept on the sidewalk. I have crashed out in the Jack-in-a-Box on the table. Anywhere in that area on Carson and Norwalk Boulevard, you would be able to find me. And if you know that neighborhood, it's no place for a white boy like me, especially when I would wear an Anaheim Angels hat, you know what I mean? Because that neighborhood does not like Anaheim, or if you're a white person, and I had to learn the hard way. I've been beat up in that neighborhood. I've been shot at the neighborhood. I've sold crack out of my ass in that neighborhood. You know what I mean? I've been told not to show my face in that neighborhood, but that wouldn't stop me from getting to what I needed. You know what I mean? I was at one point walking around that neighborhood with what was like a prison shank, that was a real sharp metal object that I would keep in a sleeve just in case. And I'm so thankful that I got to Alcoholics Anonymous because of a drug stop, possession. I am so thankful that I got here that way instead of possession of a deadly weapon or using a deadly weapon, because I would have had to use it to defend myself. I'm so thankful that finally, after going in and out of jail, my luck has ran out. And it ran out when I got into Prop 36 in LA County. Has anybody ever heard of Prop 36? So I go through Prop 36, and the way I looked at it is, as long as I don't turn myself in, I'm not on probation. And man, every time I'd get stopped by Lakewood sheriffs, they had already knew my first and last name. They had asked me to do the ABCs. They would look at my tongue and see how dried out it was. And they would just take me in, and it seemed like they would just take me in for fun. Until I finally got popped in Orange County. I got kicked out of Prop 36 and then into this other program called Drug Court. And they were telling me that it's an 18-month program, and you're going to be quartered to a 90-day program called Cooper Fellowship in the city of Santa Ana. And good luck to you. And I did. That's what happened. I ended up waiting for my bed. I remember I was waiting for that rehab to come pick me up. And they told me that I was going to get released. And I remember I was just changing into my clothes that my clothes that already smelt funny, because that's the clothes I came in getting busted with, right? Because I was homeless at the time. And I remember dressing out, getting ready to sign papers, and they're like, you know what? We can't release this guy because he has a warrant out for a bike light. So they made me do 5 extra days for some non-cent ticket that came up that turned into a warrant. So I got to stay five more days before that rehab came and picked me up. When that rehab finally picked me up, so while I was in jail, I like to count my little jail time that I did. I did about a month before I got into rehab. And I count that because there's opportunities that I could have drank Pruno. There was opportunities to smoke weed. There was opportunities to do other pill form drug, while I was locked up. And I'm so thankful that I didn't, because my thinking was, man, I'm going to get picked up by a rehab and they're going to drug test me and I'm going to come up dirty and I'm going to go right back in. And, at this last time that I was in jail, I finally got some people that were actually talking some good in me. Because every time I would go to jail and meet people and do things, and they'd just say, we'll see you back we'll see you back real soon. And I'd be like, screw you guys. And they'd be like, I told you. And then, but this last time, these guys were like, hey, you're going to a place called Cooper Fellowship? Oh yeah, I've been there. Just remember to stay open-minded. And when you go to a meeting, you tell them your name and you like popcorn. And I'm like, I didn't get that, And I was just like, whatever. And while I was in, the guys were even like, hey, they go to meetings while you're locked up. And I go, really? So I started to go to meetings when I was in jail. And I remember going to my first AA meeting at the, we call it Camp Snoopy. I don't know what the jail is actually called. I know if I look it up, but so Camp Snoopy in Irvine. And this guy was sharing that he was from the Newport Alano Club, and he told me, if you find me on the outside, I will buy you lunch. And that's what I heard. I heard, buy me lunch, and if I see you. So I was like, man, I got to get to this Newport Alano Club, because this guy said if I point him out, he's going to buy me lunch, I heard food, and when you're locked up, any kind of food sounds delicious, right? You got, it's way better than those Sack McNasties, right? That bologna that you got to drain out with the hot water. You got to get very creative while you're in to make good food. And man, so when I got out, I remember getting released to that program, and they started to tell us things like, you guys are gonna. You guys need to You guys need to get a sponsor. You guys need to work some steps. Whatever it is you guys need to do, we're not going to, and I'm so thankful for that place because they didn't like tell you like, you're going to do AA, you're going to do NA, you're going to do CA, you're going to do church. They were like, hopefully you find your path and whatever works for you, do it. And, so they would talk about like higher power and God, and I was thinking like, okay, so higher power, right? Well, at that time, my sister was she had some sober time, and I was like, my sister could be my higher power. They keep talking about this sponsor thing, and I'm still waiting for like a skate company to come in, or somebody from Monster Energy Drink, or Gatorade, like, because after this 90-day program, I'm going to need some new clothes, I need a place to stay, and man, these 12 steps, they just look like 12 sentences to me. I could read those 12 sentences. And then will you guys give me like a certificate saying like you've graduated recovery and you could go about your way? And that's what I thought it was, right? And I'd be one of those guys in the rehab that would sit in the dare to get sober section, and we would character assassinate the speaker when they would share how good life got. And the guys that I was hanging out with the back, they were, of course, getting loaded. Some were still drinking. And I knew because when we would go on job search, I was encouraging these kids to drink. Hey, if you could finish that Miller High Life in the next one drink, I'll buy you the next, because I couldn't drink and I wanted to see them have fun. So I would encourage these kids. I'd even be a middleman on scoring like mushrooms to people, you know what I mean? And man, it was just horrible. And these are the things that I was doing in early sobriety, My what I would say, Sally, my roommate, he had told me, you want a phone? I said, yes, I do. He helped me. He gave me a chip, and I didn't know it, but I was still in phone service for the first 2 years of my recovery. And my sponsor would tell me, like, hey, so if you get caught with, stolen property, are you willing to deal with consequences? I said, how else am I going to call you? I don't got a job, And he said, well, if you're willing to deal with the consequences when they come, then go ahead, do what you need to do. And that's what I learned. I'm willing to do anything that I want as long as I'm willing to deal with the consequence. And man, thank God works in mysterious ways, because then after 2 years after having that little chip that I would put into a phone, it cut itself off. And I said, it's finally time I buy my own phone, right? Because those are the type of things that I will do in early sobriety, is that I will try to come up where I can, because that's all I know how to do. I don't know how to like do the honest thing. I don't know how to like make an honest dollar. I am a thief. When I was on the street, I was the black market on wheels. You could find me on a stolen bike, bungee cord to a shopping cart, and I got a list of goodies inside, from Casadoras to shampoos to Air Force Ones and Nike Cortezes. Like, that's the kind of swap meet I was on wheels, And he told me, like, you don't have to do those things anymore. In early sobriety, I was selling my plasma, right? Because I didn't have money, and I smoked a lot. And I remember my grand sponsor pulled me aside and said, hey, bro, we're not guinea pigs today. And I was like, but I don't have no money. So, well, then get a job, like, we'll show you how to get a job. And I'd always have like excuses like not to do things. And he's like, what do you got to do this weekend? Oh, I gotta do laundry, and I got a job search. He's all, man, you're not gonna job search. You're gonna come do AA with us. And I'm so thankful for the people that came before, before me, to show me a new way to live. Because when I'm in that rehab, I'm like planning, right? I'm planning my life. I'm like, I'm practicing my like art skills, and I'm going to get with this crew when I get out of here. I'm going to start selling weed because I don't smoke anymore. And I'm going to do all these things, right? And man, I'm so glad that people will pull my covers when I have bright ideas. So that one time, the panel came in to the rehab, and they shared their experience, strength, and hope. And I thought, how cool is this? It's a group of guys. They were called Chapter 7, working with others. That's what they dedicated themselves to, is working with others. And this group came, and I remember after the meeting was over, I recognized somebody from the streets, and I went up to him. I said, "What's up, Tyler? How you doing?" He's all good, man. He's all, "You made it." And I was like, "Yeah. Thanks for that $5 you gave me," because last time I seen him, I was panhandling. He gave me $5, and he said, "I hope you get something to eat with this." And I don't remember if I got something to eat with that money. Probably not. But, I said, "Thank you." I said, "How come you didn't tell me like you were sober?" He said, "It didn't matter if I told you. I could tell you why I could speak until I turn blue, why it's a good reason to get sober and stay sober and live a good life and all this fun stuff. And you wouldn't have got it. This is how God works in your life, is he brings you here, and then now we're together." And then he asked me, "Do you have a sponsor?" And I said, "Man, I'm waiting for one of those guys to come on in." And he says, "You don't have a sponsor?" I said, "No." And he told me, "I got somebody for you." And he introduced me to this guy. He said, "Rudy, this is Ryan. Ryan, this is Rudy." Then Rudy asked me that awful question, "Am I willing to go to any length to stay sober?" And I said, "Well, what else do I have to lose? I need one of you so I could go on job search, so I could 13-step that one chick and go about my business." And he just said, "I'll be here next week, And Rudy got with me that following week, and we started doing Alcoholics Anonymous. He was some ex-gang member from some neighborhood in Anaheim. He's been homeless. He's a heroin addict, but he worked out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm so thankful for that man that started me in the journey, because I did not know what the ism, I did not know what this whole thing was about, because I remember carrying a big book when I was homeless, because I had found it in some of my buddies' belongings, his suitcase that he would hide behind bushes. I remember finding a big book in there, and I would carry it, and I would have it on me, so if I got stopped by the cops, I could be like, "I'm doing this. I'm doing A&A," and I'd carry it with me. And when he started to go through this book, it really started to come alive, because at that time I had no idea what recovery was, what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I was just always told by people that I had a problem, and that was that. July 24th, 2008 has been my sobriety date. And it has been the first, and it's been the only time that I've ever done recovery. Lucky me, right? And it's because of people that have stuck in with me, that have taught me right from wrong. You know what I mean? So when I would meet people that have said, you never have to relapse if you don't want to. And I was like, man, I kind of want to be like that. You know what I mean? Because when I was in rehab, they'd always tell us, look to our left, look to our right. And they might not be here for another year. You know what I mean? I was also told that you get a nice suit, because if you plan on sticking around here long enough, you're going to be going to some damn funerals. And I didn't want to believe that, because when you're in rehab with less than 60 days and you hear something like that, it's like, man, F that guy. I don't want, I'll show him. And my thinking was, I'm on probation, right? I got 2 probation officers. I got one in Long Beach, one in Santa Ana. I'm in Prop 36 in LA County. I'm in drug court in Orange County. Like I have things that are keeping me accountable to stay away from drugs and alcohol. So I'm not going to mess this thing up. But then I find out, no, everybody, once they got that leeway, that free time where they could go and get a drink again, they would. I stayed away because I started to work with somebody that knew better, and he started to break down the doctor's opinion, and then the where I could relate, because he would always tell me, Ryan, it doesn't matter if your mom tells you you're alcoholic, it doesn't matter if a judge tells you you're alcoholic and you have a problem. It's until you tell yourself that you are an alcoholic that you are an alcoholic. It's until I get honest with myself that I could finally realize, yes, my name is Ryan and I'm an alcoholic, and now I know how to do this thing called life. But before it was, I don't know how to live. I don't know if I want to live, you know. And when he started to break down the classifications of an alcoholic, I could start to relate on, especially that last one, like I am normal in every aspect except upon produced alcohol. And then I become another person, right? Because I'll start off with like 1 Jaeger bomb, 2 Jaeger bombs, and I'm still like funny, you know, I mingle, have fun. And then I get, you know, 10 more in me, and then I'm a complete nightmare. I'm either getting punched in the face or I'm spitting blood in yours. And, you know, it's just a disgusting sight, you know. And it's so cool that you know, this gentleman would take a bus from Anaheim, a 2-hour bus ride to this rehab just to work with an alcoholic. And it amazed me that that's what he was willing to go to any length to help his sobriety out. And he made it very clear to me one time when he came to my rehab, and he said, so are you done with that fourth step or that column? And I had said yes, but then when he had came, I wasn't. I had lied to him. And he told me point blank, you know, Ryan, you know, thanks for wasting my time. I could have been helping somebody else out. And it hit me that this thing is a life and death situation, that he came because his life depends upon helping others, the altruistic movement, you know, and I didn't understand what that meant to help others like he did, you know. Until then, I started to say, okay, you know, I'm super sorry, and I won't do it again, and luckily he stuck with me. He didn't like get rid of me or tell me to go find somebody else or anything. He just said, you know, just this is very serious, and you know, I'll be back next week because now I'm going to go help somebody else out. And you know, I made it through that rehab. I got to see a bunch of weird, crazy things. I would see people that had double digits and act certain ways of the counselors there, and I'd be like, if that is sobriety, I do not want anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Like the way people were acting. And then I was thinking, you know what? That's his sobriety and not mine. My sponsor would also point that out. He's like, don't base sobriety on other people's recovery. Just do the deal and you'll see. And he got me through that fourth step, and we did that fifth step. And yeah, I could totally relate to when Matt said, you know, spending an hour in the bathroom by yourself. And I was, you know, I had the I had the lights off, and I was like staring into the mirror with my list of character defects, and I'm like asking God to like help me with these things. And then I come across like, you know, disrespects women, and I'm thinking, what? But I open doors for people, and you know, I'm a good person, and I'm so thankful that I had another gentleman tell me that this is what I do to girls, you know, women. I disrespect them. I'm a womanizer. I'm a thief. I'm a liar. I will take what I can. And I'm so thankful that he pointed those character defects out, because then it gave me opportunity to use those defects as tools, to use those defects as I've been through this, and now I get to help somebody else out with the same defects, right? I didn't know at that time, though. He had just told me in the beginning that I want you to highlight and underline certain things, and whatever you don't understand, just underline them and ask me about them, and I will give you my best opinion upon it, right? Because this book is outlined the way it is made the way it is. All we do to help another person is just a suggestion. It's just our opinion. We cannot force anything upon anybody. All we could do is say, this is what's worked for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. And that's what I've been taught, is that I cannot force feed AA to anybody. And I started to get scared when I got to that 10th, the 11th, and then the 12th, because then when we got to the 12th step, I was like, oh my God, what is he going to have me do next, right? You know, he's already... I hope that was a firecracker. Wow. Maybe that's God's way of telling me to hurry it on up. Wow, there's my 5 minutes. All right. Woo! So after I got done doing the 12 steps to Alcoholics Anonymous, I've had a spiritual awakening to the results of these steps. I asked my sponsor what's next. He says, I want you to give this away so in order for you to keep it. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, I want you to go help out people. I said, help out people? You're crazy. Because at that time I was still scared. I was still a part of that drug court program. So I was scared. I was scared to help out another person because I was thinking like, I don't want to mess up another person's life, right? And he said, Ryan, if anybody comes and asks you for help, their life is already screwed up and you're not going to screw it up anymore. I said, well, what else do I got to lose then? Let's go. And I started to help out people. As I was in that program and getting closer to like finishing it, I was always getting discouraged. I wanted to like give up. I wanted to throw in the towel. Because I would watch other people like get off probation early, get out of that drug court and just do their jail time. And at that time I was like, jail's not that bad. The food sucks, but hey, there's no responsibility and I could just do whatever. But he taught me like, no, you need to finish this. You need to finally complete it. And when you complete it, then after that, make your choices. And, I went to finish this drug court program and I started to get scared. Because no longer will I have somebody watching me. No longer will I have somebody telling me what to do. I will be at my own free will, right? Man, if anybody is here and they're not on court card, not on probation or parole, man, my hat is off to you. You're already like a step ahead. You don't have to go through what some of us have to go through. But if you are, welcome, finish it, see what you can get out of this. And hopefully it'll do you some good and you want to continue. I got closer to the program at the time. I was doing so many panels. I was speaking where I could. I was helping out so many people because of this group called Chapter 7, working with others. They taught me so much. Then I finally moved over here, right? I moved over here into the South Bay area because of some, girl or whatever. And, I'm so thankful that God puts people in my life and then takes them away, right? Because I'm still here. And I got a different girl in my life. I'm actually in a healthy and loving relationship with this other person, and I'm truly blessed. This program, like one of the biggest things that I thought that I wouldn't be able to do is get my GED. I was able to do that. I was able to get my driver's license. I was able to get a job. And those are like things normal people get, right? For us, it's like a huge deal. It's like, man, we need our life back. So, man, I'm so blessed to be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. Truly, truly blessed. And, so if you're in here and you like what you see in here or what we do in here, keep doing it. Because once we get outside, it's when the real, it's when the real stuff happens. It's like, how am I outside these rooms? Am I practicing all my principles in my affairs? Well, ask my roommate. Ask him how I'm doing. You know what I mean? If you know my girlfriend, you could ask her how I'm doing. And I have to remember I'm a product of Alcoholics Anonymous. And wherever we go, there I am. And I got to be a good member, right? And I always have to remember God comes first, because if I think that I could do whatever I want, he could just take away whatever he wants. And I always have to remember that. So if you didn't get it at the anatomy, I hope you get it at the next meeting. Thank you.